Hey Jackal, in this video I'll show you a Unity project. It's a simple one. This makes it a little bit special because it doesn't run just on a phone that needs a touch input. I also made it so it runs off of a physical button, but that will be a topic for a different video and on my second channel, because I will make a DIY button that actually looks and feels nice, but at the moment, let me just show you how it looks like. So this is the big white button. As you can see, it does work. And the goal of this game is to stop it at 0, 0. Now this game does not look the best. I did make a version 2 of it, but for some reason, while installing, it does run, but then it's just a blank screen, and I have no idea why. But I also do not have the Unity project files. I did not save them, so I'll show you how to make it from scratch. And as you can see, sometimes when I press a button, it does not work. And that is because inside the code that is running on the chip, I have a 3-second delay, which is not represented by the code in Unity. I also made it so that the button displays you cannot press, or I disable the button. And as you can see, if I press this button can always start regardless of what that button is doing. So that is also something that I fixed in version 2 and made all of this look a little bit prettier. And also added sound effects and visual effects if you win. Now when it comes to the physical button, if you want to see that project, I plan on using this dead water pump. I will incorporate this button and the chip inside this casing, and I also plan on adding a bunch of LEDs and also animating them. But as I said, this is a standalone project, so I did not have the time yet to make it. So if you want to see that video, make sure to subscribe to my other channel, which is Jackal DIY and Tech. Now let's make this project in Unity. So at the moment I have two versions installed, 2021 and 2022. When I made this version, I used the new one, which is Unity 6, but it should work just fine if we make a new one using one of the older versions. So I will use the 2D, make a name, so maybe win button. Make the project. This may take a little while. Also, if you want to use this with Android, be it a phone or a tablet, in the Unity version that you have installed, make sure you also have the Android component installed so that once you make the project, you can also build it. And to do that, you can simply click on the cog icon, add modules, and add the Android build support. As you can see, it is quite big, 5 GB in total, which may take some time. So this is now the empty scene that I have. Let's get rid of this and let's just check if this works. So I guess I'm somehow missing a runtime DLL file. Maybe if I open this with the older version, so this one. Maybe my installation somehow got bugged, who knows. So let's see, with this version opened, I can run the empty project, so it's all good. We can now start making the game. So what do we need? Well, we will need a script. Usually you will make a bunch of folders, so we can do that. Name it scripts. The other one can be, you could have models if you want. Maybe let's go with fonts. If we'll have our own fonts, so custom fonts, maybe that's it. If we need something else, I'll add it. Then in the hierarchy, I will make a, let's see. Well, actually, if you don't have any experience, let me just show you that you too can make a game in Unity, as simple as this one, by using ChatGPT or something else. In this case, I will just give it a prompt to make a simple game. So maybe something like this. I want to make a simple Unity game where the player presses a button using space key or a tap on the screen, since this will be a game for Android. On the first press, the timer should start, and it will start from 0000, displaying seconds and milliseconds with 2 decimals. This is important, otherwise the decimals will display with 3 digits. And on second press, the timer will stop. If the player does not press a button for the second time within 15 seconds, the game restarts. That is to prevent the player walking away, and if they do, the timer will just continue into infinity. And let's see what ChatGPT will give me. So that looks good to me, and let's see what the script will look like. As you can see, the script is not long, 77 lines, and let me go over it and see what it does. As I see, it does not have a lot of comments like this one. So in the update, we will check for the key code space, so if the space is pressed or if the input is touch, and if it is greater than 0, and the input they get touch, 0 phase, so I actually do not know what this is. I could leave this out and just check for the space press. The initial version that I had, instead of using the touch count, just had an action or the button click action, which also is basically a mouse click. So you will get a bunch of different versions even if you ask it the same question. If the game is running, so if it is running, well, not the game but the timer, we will change the time and update the display time. And here we handle the presses. If the timer is not running, we start it, otherwise we stop it. When we start the timer, we set this value to true. So it is running. We get the initial time, so 0. Set the elapsed time to 0. And then we have the stop coroutine and reset coroutine. So 2 coroutines. I think it looks okay, but you never know. Now when you copy the code, you can basically give it any name that you want. In this case, the class is named timer game, so I'll simply use the same name. Go to scripts, create C script, timer game. Now you can open this in basically anything. If you have set up the Unity to use something like Visual Studio, this will open up, at least it should open up. I'll plop this in, Ctrl S to save it, but we actually won't be able to see anything. So what do we need? We need some text. So we need a text field, and that's about it. So right click, go to UI and make a text mesh pro and give it a name. So this will be timer text. We don't see it because it's, so where is the new text? So let's import the TMP essentials. So now we can actually see the text and maybe also import the TMP examples and extra if you need it. So now we see the text, we can type the initial value, which will be like so. When it comes to the font, I have these 6 fonts. If you want to use additional fonts, let me just find one. Now I actually have no idea how they look, so I will use the font base manager, and if I see a font that I like, which I have a lot of them as you can see, and if you use Google Fonts, you can have even more of them. And also what I would want is to type in the values. So in the case of displaying a timer, you would want a font that has the same width digit. So 1 and 9 are kind of like the shortest or the narrowest and the widest digit. And that can make the text display look a little bit jumpy. So ideally you want a font that is monospaced. Maybe this one would be okay, so Agent Orange, I actually have no idea where this one is. Oh, so right click, go to File, will it open it? So I found it, it is this one. I will simply copy it, go now to the game, which should be Win Button, Assets, and the fonts folder that I made, so I'll paste this in. Now I can't just use this font as is. You have to go to Window, so Text Mesh Pro, Font Asset Creator, select the font, which will be this one, and generate the font Atlas. I just don't know why the Visual Studio keeps popping up when I make any changes. So save this into the Assets font. So now we have the Atlas that we can use inside Unity. Again, why is this popping up? Go to the timer and change the font to this one. And now we have this font. If I press play, let me just see where the font is at. So it's all the way down there. So this would need to be repositioned. Currently it's way off center, so this would have to be 0, I imagine. Let's say 0 as well, and the font would have to be a lot bigger. Maybe 300, let's see. But then we also have to increase the width. So we get all of the digits into one row. In this case, I'll just use width 920 and height maybe 1080. So it's basically the whole width and the height of the screen. So the width and the height do not have to be these values. I'll just use them for now. The alignment I will use center and center. But what we do have to change is the canvas, so that it scales with the screen, and reference resolution will be 1920 by 1080. Since this is what most monitors have. So if you change this to full HD, this is how the game will look like. So we have the text all set up. We just need the button. Well, maybe we don't need it just yet. What we can add though is a background, so we have something else to look at instead of this plain blue color. Or we can just change the background right here. Now I've done something that I shouldn't have done, and that is make changes while in the play mode. Now the most changes that I have done is in the rect transform, so I will click on the 3 dots, go to copy and use component, and I will kind of remember the other values that I have used, because once you leave the play mode, this will reset. So I will now click right here and go to paste component values. This has positioned this back into the center, at least it should have. but we need to change the font scale to 300 and center this back to how it was. And now we have this in the center. When it comes to the main camera, I have also changed this. And if I now go into play mode, I will see the text right on top. So that is set up. I can now save this, Ctrl S, go back to the ChatGPT. Now I do have some instructions here, but not a lot. When I made this previously, it gave me better instructions, which also told me you need to make a canvas, which is basically what you need when you use a text. Now when you add a text, so UI Text Mesh Pro, the canvas will be made automatically, and you can then also use a button. So go to canvas, right click on it, UI, and you can add a button if you want. So you can then position this down, scale it up to how much you want. I think I used something like 800 by 150 pixels for the width and the height. Maybe just 100 pixels is enough. Adjust the position, maybe minus 400. Change the background. Now in this case, because I have just changed the view or the color of the camera, I don't actually see the changes being made when inside the scene view. So instead of using the background color of the camera, what we can use is a panel. So UI and panel. Position this on the top. So this is like layering. The thing that is on the top is basically in the background. And you can simply change the color to what you want right here, and also adjust the alpha. So maybe this is the color scheme that you want to go with. And now we can go to the button and make all of the changes. So the button text, I had this set to start, change the font size, but most importantly change the color so we can actually see it. Maybe use the same font, so this one, and lower the font size so it actually fits. So about 60 looks good. Now you can do a lot more with the text. You can also change it while the game is playing. And at the end I had something like try again, I think. And I had a question mark, and then the timer would go down with 3, 2, and 1. Something like that. So this fits, and the size of the font also fits, so I can use this. And now what the ChatGPT did say is that we need a game manager object that this code will be attached to. That is easy to do. Simply right click in the hierarchy, make a new game object, name it game manager, go to the scripts and simply click the script onto the game manager object. And if it is selected like it is now, you can also add the script right here. And as you can see, it is expecting a timer text input field, which is this one. But I imagine I will not be able to add it, which is the case. And this is where ChatGPT will not provide you with all of the solutions. So you do need to know a bit of Unity at least to know what to expect. In this case, it is using text, which I think is obsolete, at least not used from what I understand. And you need to use TM Pro, but then you also need to add that on the top. And I think this one is TM Pro-text. I'll have to look it up. Now I do know that I need to use the TM Pro text. I just don't know what the correct spelling is. TM Pro on the top. This one down is not. So we have using TM Pro and tmp.text. tmp-text. So as you saw, I was close, but this also means that you should not be relying on AI too much, because otherwise you also forget the simple stuff. So now that the script is saved, I can go back into Unity, and as you can see, it's now expecting TMP text, which this is. So now I could add it into this field, save it, run this. Now how will this run? So nothing is happening when I press outside. Will it run when I press on the button? It does not. How about when I press space? It does, but the text is changing here, not here. Okay, because I've used the wrong text. So that was my bad. It is this text. So as you can see, the text does not look good. It's all jittery. Now, how can we fix this? Firstly, we have a dot. We do not have the colon, as I have specified, and we also lost the initial 0. And this has to do with how this is being updated. The initial version, when I've asked ChatGPT, also provided me with a better solution or a better format, which this did not do at all. So it does not use the format that I specified, which was 2 zeros, colon, and 2 zeros, and that just turns to, let's say, 1 dot and 2 decimals. So maybe let's get mad a little bit and ask it to give us a better formatting. So let's see what the changes will be with the formatting. Oh, I did not know this can happen. So it showed me all of the steps that it took and any changes that it made. So it made these changes, and this is exactly what I expected, except in this case it included minutes, which I don't need. But in any case, I will just copy this code, put it in, remove the minutes, and also I do not need any minutes. So this one will now be, and it has to start with 0. So do not delete the first one, delete the last one. So this should run. If you use, say, 1 and 2, because you deleted the first one, this will not work. It will say something, not enough indexes, or something along those lines. Let's play this again. Press space. So now we have the same format as expected, but this is jumping all around. Let's see if we can make some changes to the alignment. So if this is set to left, it's good. So in this case, with this font, the alignment should be set to left. And it also restarted after 15 seconds. Though in this case, what we need to do is adjust the position. So position X, and position it somewhere in the middle, which would be about 180. Let's give this a go. Now it jumps a little bit, and that is because this font is not monospaced. So this is the issues that you can expect. So that is why you should have a monospaced font. If I use a different font, let's say this one, I guess I could use this one. So I think I will just use the gaming font, which was the Electronic Highway. I will use this font. But since I'm in the play mode, I'll have to change it. And now because the font is smaller, I can also increase the font size, maybe 500 even, so it's visible. I can also change this one. Before I do, you may ask about the outline. You can simply enable it and change the thickness. So this is how that can be done. Maybe change the font of this one as well, so it is the same. Also change the size to 80, position it down. So I will go with 10 pixels and bottom will be, let's see, 0 pixels. So that's the position. Now why is nothing happening when I click? Maybe I'd have to disable this clicking mechanism. So let me disable it. So now even when I disable this yellow dot, the button does not work. So this is also something that, oh, I guess this is because of the touch input only, so it does not work with the mouse. So we could ask the ChatGPT to make us an input for the mouse and omit the touch controls. So let's make that change. So can ChatGPT make me the change to leave the space key press but change the touch input to the left mouse button click? Let's see. Yes, he did make some change. This change was a little bit different than before, but it was just this one. So I'll copy this line, replace it, and now when I go into Unity, I should be able to click on this button to activate it. And that is exactly the case. Now what we're missing is some win conditions, otherwise you would have to check at the digits. So close one by 100th of a second. Now when it comes to the win condition, you only want the player to win when the 10th and the 100th are both 0. And what do we do when we win? We could maybe play a music and also add some visual effects. I think this should be enough for the last step. So we have a win condition with the 2 decimals, need to be 00, and we want to play a short win sound and display some particles. So let's see what it will give me. So we have the win sound, we have some particles. Did anything change? Above it did not. I also do not see any changes there. But the win condition, where actually is it? So we have win game, and we call win game in the check win condition. And the check win condition is called on stop timer. So when the player presses the button, it checks if the player has won, and if they did win, the win game plays, and it plays the sound, and it also plays the particles. That looks okay, so I will copy these sections of the code, but I will omit this one as I have already made changes to it, so I do not need this one. And the stop timer is the same. So I think this should be it for the base game. So we have the start timer, we update it, we then stop it, and we check for win condition. Let's see, win sound. I have to add the win sound, which should be at the top. So I also need these 2 pieces of code, just like this. So if we win, we'll play the win game section, which has the sound and some particles. Now when the code is saved, the game manager will now have 2 new sections. You can play this, it does not matter. You will get some errors though when you actually win. But I guess this will take me too long to do because the win condition is very short. In any case, you would need now a win sound to put it in. So we can do that. Let me find some audio. So that is also a good example what you could also add to the assets. So audio, make a folder, audio. I could use this dolphin wave, so I will copy that file, go to the assets, audio, paste it in. Now you can use WAV files, MP3s. Using the MP3s I think is a lot better on the system because the WAV files are bigger. Let's see, win sound, audio source. Oh, so this one is expecting some audio source to be put in. What I can actually do is add an audio source, so audio source, add this, add the dolphin sound to this, as you can see, you have multiple ways of playing sounds. In this case, it wants this audio source to be put into the win condition. Now the only thing that you don't want is the play on awake. This would play immediately when the game starts, so you do not want this. And you also most likely do not want to loop this, unless this would be some kind of a background music. So now the dolphin sound will only play when the win condition is met. Otherwise, if the play on awake is enabled, we should be able to hear it when the game starts. So that was the case, we heard it. And we also heard it on the win condition. Now when it comes to some visuals, you can use the Unity Asset Store. And once you find something that you like, you can go to the Package Manager, go to My Assets. This may take a while depending on how fast your internet connection is and also how many assets you have already added. Maybe if I go with VFX, do I have something with VFX? I do. And you have this one, which is free. You have a bunch of them that are free. Also Magic Effects, free. But it depends on what you actually want. Maybe you want some fireworks. So maybe I'll go with this one, which is the Cartoon FX Remaster free. I first have to download it. So download. It should not take that long, since it is only 12 megabytes, a bit more. And once it is downloaded, I can import it into this project. Now, I usually have a separate project opened to test all of the effects. Otherwise, everything gets imported. But in this case, I'll just import everything. Find an effect that I like. So I have the effects in. And I would want to go to, let's see, probably the prefabs. And then we have a bunch of different assets that we can explore. Now, how do they look? No idea, but put them in. And press F to actually see them because they may be very, very tiny. Like in this case. I kinda like this one. Maybe set it to looping. While we do the positioning and maybe also the sizing, because what you may notice is this is very tiny compared to the whole game. And even if you increase it, this section of the effects is actually behind our background. Now, if I disable the background, which is this panel, and play the effect, and have the effect set to play on awake, so it will start when the game starts, and now we have the background color of the main camera, which if you don't use the panel, that's okay, but if you use the panel, you don't see the effect. So in that case, what you have to do is... Now the easiest way that I found how to do this is to go to Canvas, change the render mode from Screen Space Overlay to Screen Space Camera, and make sure that you actually put the camera inside. And also in this case I have changed the layer from default to the one that I made. If this was set to default, the camera would still see it, because default is selected, well, by default. Now in this case you would have to scale this back down, so you can actually see the effect. Maybe something like this looks okay. Now this effect does not go well with the theme that is all blocky, but it just goes to show you how you can do this quickly. So now if I go back, enable the panel. So now I will simply go to the canvas, change the screen space to camera, drag the camera inside, As you can see, this now changes everything. It is this big, but when we go into the play mode, we should see everything. And also change the size of the particles back to 4-ish, maybe 3-ish. That looks okay. You can also make all sorts of changes, so the color, but you have to find the right particles, that is. I guess it's best if I just disable them, so I see which one is doing the actual sparks. Interesting. So I guess this one is the main one. Yep. So in this case, the main one controls the actual color of the sparks. Now you don't want the sparks to continuously play, so disable play awake and also the looping, so it only plays once. Oh, so now I do see the ring that I have previously disabled and the long sparks. So we have the long spikes and ring, so that is what those were. So maybe the whole size should be 2. I think that looks good. So now we have the effect in. It is overlaid on top of the canvas. The only thing that we need to do is to call it when the game ends, or not ends, but when the player finishes. Well, not finishes, when the player wins. The same as with the sound. Just disable the play on wake. We don't want the sound to start at the beginning of the game. And as you can see, we do have the win particles. So now we simply put those in, and the particles should play when the player wins. And hopefully it doesn't take me long. So the sparks did not play, as you saw. And why is that? I actually do not see them. So what happened with the sparks? They disappear. What about Game Manager? It's also missing them.
5 minutes later.
So is this a good question for ChatGPT? Why my prefab is disappearing? And what would the solution be? Either make this to not disappear or to call the prefab from inside the code. So I will just give it an open question, how the chat will fix it. To the stop action, is it set to destroy? Let's see. I did not actually check that. It does. It does. I think this is a custom script that destroys the particles, and this was the issue. So this should now work even if I just have the original particles. So I will enable this. Set the clear behavior to none. Put this in. So we now have this. The game manager also has this inside. All that's left for me to do is hit the 0, which is the win condition. This will take me too long, so let's use ChatGPT again and ask it. So I just want a simple public setting that I can use in the editor in Unity, so I can enable the win condition and play the sound and also play the particles. So it added this section for win. I will copy this section. Then we have in the update the force win section, and I think that's it. Save and we'll check. So we have the force win condition, and let's check it. That was correct. And does it work the second time? It does. So that is what would happen if the player had 1 with 2 zeros being at the end. Now when it comes to exporting this to Android, let's see, we would first go to Edit and Project Settings, go to Player, set the company name, This could be your name, your nickname, the name of the game, the version of the game. Usually I start with 0.1 because you can always change something to make it look nicer, behave better. Then you would load default icons. In this case, you would go to Android icon. And this one has 432 by 432 pixels, and it takes a background and a foreground. This splash image is for virtual reality. Otherwise, you can preview what it looks like. So you can use Unity screen. If you use Unity 6, you can also disable the Unity logo and just have your own logo or logos. In this case, I will not do any of those changes. But once you have everything set up in the project settings under the player, you can go to File, Build Settings. And this is where you would switch to Android, switch the platform, and once it is switched, you would simply go to Build and Run. And from what I remember, if you use Unity 6, this screen also looks quite different. So that is why I showed you how to go to the player settings, because in Unity 6 I actually did not see a button for the player settings inside the build options. And that's it, at least when it comes to making the game. If you want to see how to make an awesome looking button, I suggest you subscribe to my other channel, which is Jackal, DIY and Tech. I'm Simon, and until next time, Jackal, keep it digital.